Bar for Christine Rivera's heart hammered against her ribs as Kelly White's words hung in the air between them like a bridge neither was ready to cross. "I wasn't joking," Kelly whispered, her green eyes searching Christine's face with an intensity that made the world tilt on its axis. "When I said you'd be my backup wife, I wasn't joking at all." The confession hit Christine like electricity, every nerve ending suddenly alive and singing. She had replayed this moment in her mind 1,000 times over the past 8 months, but nothing had prepared her for the raw vulnerability in Kelly's voice, the way her fingers trembled as they reached across the space between them on the couch. Kelly, Christine breathed, and the name felt different on her tongue now, weighted with possibility and terror in equal measure. "What are you saying?" But even as the question left her lips, Christine knew. She had known from the moment Kelly's joke had fallen flat at dinner 3 weeks ago, from the way Kelly's laughter had died when Christine had quietly replied, "I'd say yes." The silence that followed had stretched between them like a chasm, filled with everything they couldn't say, everything they were both too afraid to acknowledge. Prior, Kelly's hand found Christine's, their fingers intertwining with the desperate certainty of two people finally allowing themselves to fall. "I'm saying that somewhere along the way, the idea of spending my life with you stopped being a backup plan and started being the only plan that made sense." Her thumb traced circles across Christine's knuckles, each touch sending shockwaves through Christine's carefully constructed walls. "I'm saying that every relationship I've had has felt like I was playing a part, like I was trying to fit into a life that was too small for who I really am." The words Christine had carried like stones in her chest for months finally found their voice. "I've been in love with you for 8 months and 12 days, she whispered, the confession tearing from her throat like a prayer. "Since the night you showed up at my door crying about David, since you fell asleep in my arms and I realized I never wanted to let you go." Kelly's eyes fluttered closed, and Christine watched a single tear track down her cheek. "I've been dying inside, watching you with him, listening to you complain about how something was missing, knowing I could never tell you that maybe what was missing was me." "Paraquar, Christine!" Kelly's voice broke on her name, and suddenly they were moving toward each other, the space between them collapsing like it had never existed at all. Kelly's hands cupped Christine's face, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones with reverent gentleness. "Can I kiss you?" The question was barely a whisper, but it echoed through Christine's soul like thunder. She nodded, unable to speak, unable to breathe, unable to do anything but lean into the moment she had dreamed of for so long. When their lips met, it was nothing like Christine had imagined and everything she had never dared to hope for. Soft and tentative at first, a question being asked and answered, then deeper as Kelly's hands tangled in Christine's hair and pulled her closer. Christine tasted salt from Kelly's tears, felt the tremor in her breath, the way she seemed to melt and strengthen all at once. The kiss was confession and absolution, terror and coming home, the end of one story and the breathless beginning of another. Parf. But to understand how they arrived at this moment, how two best friends crossed the invisible line from platonic love to something that burned brighter than stars, the story must begin 8 months earlier on a Tuesday night in March when Kelly White showed up at Christine Rivera's apartment door with mascara streaking her cheeks and her world falling apart. Par far, Christine had been grading papers when the knock came, red pen poised over a particularly creative interpretation of the Revolutionary War. She opened the door to find Kelly standing in the hallway, rain-soaked and shivering, her usually perfect blonde hair plastered to her skull. "He's cheating on me," Kelly said without preamble, her voice hollow and distant. "David is cheating on me, and I don't even care. That's the worst part, Christine. I should be devastated, but all I feel is relieved." Christine's heart clenched at the sight of her best friend's pain, even as a treacherous part of her mind whispered that maybe this was the beginning of something. She pushed the thought away, focusing instead on gathering Kelly into her arms, on being the safe harbor Kelly needed. "Come inside," she murmured, guiding Kelly to the couch, wrapping her in the soft throw blanket Christine kept draped over the back. "Tell me what happened." The story came out in fragments. Kelly curled against Christine's side like a wounded bird seeking shelter. David had been distant for months, working late, taking mysterious phone calls. Kelly had found the texts that afternoon, explicit messages from a coworker that painted a picture of betrayal stretching back weeks. "But that's not what's killing me," Kelly whispered, her fingers playing with the edge of Christine's sweater. "What's killing me is that when I saw those messages, my first thought wasn't about losing him. It was about how I finally had an excuse to leave." "Price." Christine's breath caught, but she kept her voice steady, supportive. "What do you mean?" Kelly was quiet for so long that Christine thought she might have fallen asleep, but then she felt Kelly's shoulders shake with a silent sob. "I mean, I've been pretending for so long that I don't even know who I really am anymore," Kelly said. "Every relationship I've ever had has felt like I'm playing dress-up, like I'm trying to be someone else's idea of what I should want. And with David, it was worse because he's everything I'm supposed to want. Successful, handsome, stable. But being with him felt like suffocating." Sapfruf. That night, Kelly fell asleep in Christine's arms on the couch, her breathing eventually evening out as Christine stroked her hair and tried to ignore the way her heart raced at Kelly's proximity. Christine stayed awake until dawn, memorizing the feel of Kelly's weight against her chest, the sweet scent of her shampoo, the way her fingers had unconsciously curled into Christine's shirt, as if anchoring herself to something solid and real. It was the night Christine finally admitted to herself that what she felt for Kelly went far beyond friendship, and it was the night she decided that secret would die with her. The weeks that followed were a careful dance of support and self-preservation. Christine helped Kelly move out of the apartment she had shared with David, held her while she cried, celebrated with her when she landed a promotion at the marketing firm where she worked. They fell into a routine of movie nights and late dinners, of Kelly showing up unannounced with takeout and staying until the early hours of the morning, talking about everything except the elephant in the room. Christine became an expert at reading Kelly's moods, at knowing when she needed distraction and when she needed silence. She learned that Kelly hummed unconsciously when she was content, that she bit her lower lip when she was thinking hard about something, that she had a tiny scar above her left eyebrow from falling off her bike when she was 7. Every detail felt precious and dangerous, another weight added to the growing collection of reasons Christine was falling deeper in love with someone she could never have. It was during one of these evenings, about 3 months after Kelly's breakup, that the conversation turned to relationships and what Kelly wanted for her future. They were sitting on Christine's balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Kelly had been quieter than usual, lost in thought, when she suddenly said, "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" Christine's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. "What do you mean?" Kelly's gaze was fixed on the horizon, her profile soft in the fading light. "I mean, do you ever look around and think, this is what I'm supposed to want? This is what everyone expects me to want, but it doesn't feel right." She turned to meet Christine's eyes, and there was something vulnerable and searching in her expression. "Like maybe I've been following a script that was written for someone else." I think," Christine said carefully, "that a lot of people feel that way sometimes, like they're trying to fit into a mold that wasn't made for them." Kelly nodded, taking a sip of her wine before speaking again. "I keep thinking about what I want my life to look like in 10 years. And every time I try to picture myself married to some hypothetical perfect guy, living in some perfect house with perfect kids, it feels like I'm looking at a stranger's life." The conversation meandered through topics of identity and expectation, of the pressure to follow conventional paths even when they led nowhere you actually wanted to go. Christine found herself sharing more than she intended about her own struggles with dating, about how every relationship she'd attempted had felt hollow and performative. "Maybe we're both just too picky," Kelly said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe we should just resign ourselves to being each other's backup wives." The joke hit Christine like a physical blow, even as she forced herself to laugh along. "I'd say yes," she said quietly, the words slipping out before she could stop them. The silence that followed felt charged with electricity, Kelly's laughter dying on her lips as she stared at Christine with an expression Christine couldn't read. "I mean," Christine added quickly, her cheeks burning, "if we're both still single at 40, why not? We already know we're compatible roommates." "Guy?" Kelly's smile was strange, soft, and uncertain. "Yeah," she said after a moment. "Why not?" But something had shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of something neither was ready to name. The rest of the evening passed in comfortable conversation, but Christine couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed some invisible line, that Kelly's joke had revealed more than either of them was prepared to handle. The weeks following that conversation were marked by a subtle change in their dynamic. Kelly seemed to seek out Christine's company even more frequently, showing up at her apartment after work, suggesting weekend activities, texting throughout the day with observations and inside jokes. There were moments when Christine caught Kelly looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher, moments when their hands would brush and Kelly wouldn't immediately pull away. Christine tried to convince herself she was imagining things, that her own feelings were coloring her perception of Kelly's behavior. But there were signs she couldn't ignore. The way Kelly's voice would soften when she said Christine's name, the way she would unconsciously lean into Christine's space during their movie nights, the way she seemed to light up whenever Christine walked into a room. It was torture and hope in equal measure, a constant ache in Christine's chest that she carried like a secret wound. The breaking point came on a Friday evening in late October. Kelly had been unusually quiet all week, distracted and distant, in a way that reminded Christine of the early days after her breakup with David. When Kelly showed up at Christine's door that night, she looked like she hadn't slept in days, her usual brightness dimmed to something fragile and uncertain. "Purr. I need to ask you something," Kelly said without preamble, settling onto Christine's couch with the careful movements of someone trying to hold themselves together. "And I need you to be honest with me, even if the answer is something I don't want to hear." Christine's heart began to race, but she nodded, settling beside Kelly and waiting for whatever revelation was about to shatter the careful equilibrium they had maintained. "Top Barty." "That night on the balcony," Kelly began, her fingers twisting in her lap. "When I joked about us being backup wives, and you said you'd say yes." "Were you joking?" The question hung between them like a loaded gun, and Christine felt her world narrow to this moment, this choice between honesty and safety. Kelly's green eyes were fixed on her face, searching for truth, and Christine realized that this was the moment that would define everything that came after. Power of Christine's mouth went dry, her carefully constructed walls crumbling under the weight of Kelly's gaze. "No," she whispered, the word barely audible but carrying the force of 8 months of hidden longing. "I wasn't joking." Kelly's breath caught, her eyes widening as if Christine had just confirmed something she had been afraid to hope for. "How long?" Kelly asked, her voice soft and wondering. "How long have you felt this way?" "Since the night you showed up here crying about David," Christine admitted, the words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. "Since you fell asleep in my arms and I realized that holding you felt like coming home. I've been in love with you for 8 months and 12 days, and I've been dying inside because I thought I could never tell you." Kelly's hand found Christine's, their fingers intertwining with desperate certainty. "Par." "I wasn't joking either," Kelly whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "When I said you'd be my backup wife, I wasn't joking at all. I think I've been in love with you for months, but I was too scared to admit it, even to myself. Every time I tried to imagine my future, you were the only constant. You were the only person who made me feel like I could be myself without apology." The confession hung between them like a bridge finally built, spanning the chasm of uncertainty that had separated them for so long. Parfour, and then Kelly was asking if she could kiss Christine, and Christine was nodding through her tears, and their lips were meeting in a kiss that tasted like coming home and starting over all at once. When they finally pulled apart, foreheads resting together, breathing ragged and hearts racing, Kelly smiled through her tears and said, "So I guess we don't have to wait until we're 40 after all." Brr, 3 months later, they were curled together on the same couch where Kelly had first confessed her feelings, sharing morning coffee and the comfortable silence of two people who had found their way to each other despite all the obstacles in their path. Kelly's engagement ring from David had been returned, her apartment lease transferred to Christine's name so they could officially live together. The transition hadn't been without its challenges, but every difficult conversation, every moment of doubt, had only strengthened their certainty that this was right. "Do you ever regret it?" Christine asked one morning, watching Kelly hum as she made breakfast, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window and turning her hair to gold. Kelly turned, spatula in hand, and gave Christine a look of such pure love that it took her breath away. "Regret finding out that my best friend was also the love of my life. Regret discovering that all those years of feeling like I was living someone else's story were just leading me to my real story? Never." Kelly crossed to where Christine sat at the kitchen table, leaning down to press a soft kiss to her lips. "Besides," she murmured against Christine's mouth, "you did say you'd say yes. I'm just holding you to your word." Christine laughed, pulling Kelly down for another kiss, marveling at how something that had started as a joke between friends had become the most honest thing either of them had ever said. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories were the ones that caught you completely off guard, and sometimes the person you were meant to spend your life with was the one who had been there all along, waiting for you to realize that home wasn't a place but a person, and that person was them.